Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, a show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today, we're joined by Rudy Morandin, who's the Vice President of HR North America at Pirelli. Welcome to the show, Rudy. How are you?
Very good. Hi, Chris.
How are you holding up in New York?
Good. Locked at home. Say good. Not really good, but locked at home, and no big chance to go out other than buy some food. But I think it's quite a common experience for all of us.
Yes, we're in this together. That's the one thing we can take out of this. We're all in this together as well. How things have changed since our last conversation.
A lot.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today.
I'm currently working as HR for North America for Pirelli. Just a couple of words on Pirelli. Pirelli is a tire company, tire manufacturer. We are one of the top 5 in the world and quite known for producing and selling premium tires. Let's say for a large audience, we are quite popular because we supplied Formula One, which currently is another casualty of the COVID-19. So I started my journey as HR some years ago. I think 15 years ago. Italian, I didn't say that. I started for an Italian manufacturing company, and then I joined Pirelli in 2007. So it's been quite a number of years with this company. So I had the chance to work in different countries, Italy for 5 years. Then I moved to UK, to your country, where I lived for and worked for 3 years as HR director for the UK subsidiary there. And then the great experience in China for 3 years and a half until 2018, when the company asked me to move to New York.
How long is that in Pirelli then? The time-wise.
2007, 13 this
wow.
year, 13 years, yeah.
It's not often that I speak to people that have been in the role for so long, especially in this day and age. People seem to be moving around very quickly. What is it about Pirelli that's kept you so engaged?
It's a company where the sense of belonging and loyalty toward this company is it's one of the value, I have to say. So it's quite common across all the countries, different level of the organization. So why that? I don't know. It's a company that was founded in 1872, so very, very long history. I think this is an element that engages people through the years. The company was involved in different businesses, mainly all the business, not only, but most of the business linked with rubber. So rubber has always been at the core of this company. Now we are purely a tire company, but this heritage, in particular in certain countries, is very, very strong, and that makes people very, very loyal.
Something that I took away from our first conversation is the opportunity. That, for example, today we're going to jump into the opportunity you had in terms of moving to China, operating out there. It seemed that you'd always felt challenged and that you were growing.
Correct. It's fair to say. I said that I spent 13 years with Pirelli. That's not correct, because for 2 years, and this is the story I'm gonna tell you later, there was a spell of 2 years where Pirelli asked me to move out to a Chinese company, and then I can give you a little bit of background, but clearly that was a completely different experience that added to my career. So if I'm here today in New York, I need to thank also that particular experience.
Well, let's jump into that story then. How did that explain sort of the background to it, and then how the opportunity came up, and then why did you say yes?
Yeah. You're right. So in 2015, I was in China. I was the HR director Asia Pacific for Pirelli. I'd been there for less than 1 year at that point. Now suddenly, overnight, I will say in 2015, a Chinese state-owned corporation became the major shareholder of Pirelli. At that time, Pirelli was a public company with different shareholders. So suddenly, basically, we became Chinese. And I was in China at that time. And that was a good thing, because there was not just a financial investment, but it was also an industrial investment, meaning that this company, ChemChina, which is a huge state-owned corporation, mainly involved with chemical products, but they have also a tire division.
They also own Syngenta, is that right?
Yeah. They acquired Syngenta. That was the biggest deal in 2017, probably. It was a 50 billion deal. It was the biggest deal of the year. Yeah, so you can imagine the size of the company. They have also this tire division, where at that time they had 4 Chinese companies. So the plan was to merge these 4 companies, all active in the industrial tire business, so producing tires for trucks, for this kind of application. And then merge the resulting company with the Pirelli division dealing with truck tires. Okay, so that was the big plan. So forget a second this second step. The first step was to merge the 4 Chinese companies. This is the background. And ChemChina asked basically Pirelli to help them to do this merge. So they asked some, let's call them experts of Pirelli, to join these 4 Chinese companies and help them to go through this integration in order to prepare the ground for the second step, that was the merge with the division, industrial tire division of Pirelli. So let's focus on the first step. I was one of few Pirelli managers, 6 of us, to ask to leave formally Pirelli and to join one of the 4 companies, Chinese companies. So the company that was supposed to integrate the other 3. That was pretty much the plan. What happened, I give you a couple of numbers just to understand. We're talking about the merge of 4 companies, size 12,000 employees. So quite important integration. One of the 4 companies, so the company I was hired was the company supposed to merge the other, and this was a public company, so listed at Shanghai Stock Exchange. So this makes the picture even a little bit more complicated to some extent in terms of communication to the market and all these kind of things. One element is interesting also from an HR perspective. So I said that 6 Pirelli managers joined the company, but we were in the organization. Actually, we became the top management of the company. So we were put on top of the existing management of the company. So let me give you an example. I became the HR director of this company, and the existing HR became my deputy. So a Pirelli guy became the CEO of this company, and the existing CEO became the deputy CEO. So that was the governance.
Surely.
Yes. Yeah. This could make the picture a little bit more complicated. And to make it even more complicated, let me add one point, the language. So here we are talking about state-owned companies. English is not exactly spoken. Okay. It's not really easy to find in the organization people who can speak English. It can clearly act as a sort of ambassadors or help the communication. So that was another big barrier that we had to face. So let me give you an example, but think about a meeting with 20 people where everything you say must be translated by a translator in Chinese, then the Chinese reply, and then translation back. So the meeting normally will last 30 minutes, probably goes for 4
hours. And then one side of the table, you've got the existing set of leadership, and then the other side of the table, you've got the new leadership. That must have been I can't even imagine the dynamic of that room.
That's a good point, definitely. Clearly, there was a general understanding that we had to work together and to find a common way and to make it happen. But your point is absolutely right. If I'm the CEO of a company and overnight I'm becoming the deputy of a foreigner that becomes my boss, okay, there are some frictions, and we experience some frictions. Plus the language, plus the different cultural mindset, which is not necessarily Chinese versus foreigner, but it's mainly state-owned Chinese company versus multinational company. Because when I was in Pirelli, China, and I had to work with my Chinese colleagues, clearly we are part of a multinational company, so the way of working is pretty similar, if you understand what I mean. Here, the difference was not really Chinese versus foreign, but was a different way of working. I can give you an example. So in this company, clearly, a multinational company is always focused on profit, make it profit, doing better, be more efficient. In this company, this is not necessarily priority number one. Priority could be to keep a certain level of employment. You have also the Communist Party inside the organization. The Communist Party works a little bit as the trade unions in a
Yeah.
Western world company, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So you have also this internal stakeholder to deal with. Because they are very much focused on keeping some level of employment, not necessarily to be very efficient. So you have all these differences that we have to deal with.
Yeah, and completely new to you as well, right? I'm sure.
Oh, definitely, because I may say, look, I have some experience of China. I can use that. That was quite a different experience. So the very first learning was resilience. I will use this word because really you say, I was picked because I'm an expert of the HR field. Okay, so I need to put in place what I've learned, what my knowledge is. Actually, you have really to question yourself every time you make a decision in that environment. So you may say, okay, I have a problem and I want to fix this problem in this way because my experience said that I should do
Yeah, you
it
should
in
do
this
it.
way.
Mhm.
You have always to question yourself. Am I really sure? And so you start double checking with other people, making sure with the Chinese if they have different views. Most of the time, clearly, the Chinese view was, I wouldn't say opposite, but different. And so you have to combine this. So I would call it resilience because at the beginning, in particular, it was very, am I wrong? Why my messages are not understood? Actually, it was not my problem. It was a problem of cultural differences. Let me put it this way.
Must have been quite frustrating for you then.
It was not just for me, but also for my colleagues at the beginning. I think there was also a little bit of misunderstanding in terms of mission. So clearly, I think that the Chinese thought we were asked just to manage the integration on a high level. We understood that our mission was to do that, but also to manage the daily business. And that is the part
communicated clearly enough.
Yeah,
that's a very important thing not to be communicated clearly. No one.
Yeah. We had to deal with the new shareholder,
Sure.
and you don't know exactly whether the message was always consistent through the organization. So that's no, but that's mainly clearly a joke. It was a great experience. I didn't say that clearly that the companies were locating really 4 different place areas in China: north, south, east, and west. So there was a lot of traveling. There was a lot of, not only from a professional experience, but from a let's say relationship experience, a cultural experience. That was really great.
Mm-hmm. What did the first so you had a leader appointed to each of these companies. You were one of those 4.
Yeah.
You say 4 or 3?
So yeah, we were basically working for one of the 4, and we were supposed to integrate the other 3.
So you're working with, and who are your counterparts?
6 of us were basically expats from different nationalities. We had Turkish, we had Italians, Dutch. It was also quite diverse in terms of management team.
So not only are you having the language barrier and communication between yourself and the new stakeholders, you've got times that by 4.
Yeah, but let's say yeah, you're right. Yeah, definitely.
It seems like a daunting task, but one thing I love about it is that the most successful HR leaders I speak to and interview on the show, they run towards those opportunities, like you said, where most people would run the opposite direction. If you laid that challenge out on paper for most people, I'm sure most people will be like, actually, no, that sounds like a bit of a nightmare to deal with as well. So how did you then communicate the overarching why, the direction, the purpose across those 4 businesses to bring them together? What did that look like in terms of the communication strategy and making sure everyone's aligned? What are some of the specific things that you did?
Yeah, I think, and we move to the HR part of my story. Look, the assessment at the beginning was, we need to go through this integration, and we have limited resources in terms of people able to help us to go through this. Language is an obstacle, but not just language. So the assumption was, for sure, out of 12,000 employees, there is some talent there. There must be some talent, but we need to identify this talent, and then these talents can help us to go through this integration. So From an HR perspective, the most important initiative we put in place was this talent assessment. So basically, we identified 250 existing managers. We went through an assessment with the help of one of the major consultancy company. We have very limited resources, but we spend the resources for this particular initiative.
Very important part, of course. So everything depends on this part. So
definitely. So at the end of this process, we had quite a sort of identity card of each of these 250 people.
Does it all have? Does it also have a skill breakdown of those skills that exist within those? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like processes like this that are quite common in multinational companies, they're completely unknown in that environment. But this is what they were actually quite excited to have us putting in place measure like this, and that helped this kind of engagement because they saw HR, this, let's say, foreign expert is bringing something new we're not familiar with.
What HR looks like in China versus not in the Western world is very different. A lot of the Chinese vice presidents of HR that I speak to is very different what HR is and means in China compared to in Europe or North America.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So we took a picture of these 250 people, and which was very much beneficial to understand how to place these people in the new organization, because clearly we have a clear picture of the skills, of the experience, of the seniority, whatever. So that helped in that perspective. Second one, out of the 250, we identified 60, let's say the high potential, and we went through a leadership program with them. And this is to answer your question. So how did you cascade the communication, the engagement throughout the organization? Through that group of 60 mainly. So those 60 became the change agents to some extent. Those that we train in order to understand the new values, the new mission of the company, we get them together, and then they will help us to go through this integration. And that was the mission of this program, and that was very well accepted, very well welcomed.
And it's so much better coming from them as well, right?
Yeah.
Because they're the people that are on the ground, the people that their employees trust, they know, like, and trust, the familiarity as well, that they can get behind that. So I think that's such an important part of it. So is it mainly the training? Was it mainly sort of in person, face to face? Did you bring them all together in one room, or is it a bit of digital as well?
Yes, and it was important at that time because don't forget the four companies actually didn't have any relationship, so it was important. It was important to pick managers from all of them, to put them in a room, so there was also an opportunity for them to know each other, to establish a little bit of network, to understand how to face same problems moving forward. So I think in that particular case, the in-person was the best solution to create also this community.
Was there anything you would have done differently looking back, given the fact that it was such a new territory? Never been there before. Anything you'd have done differently?
Well, I think so. I think we made, I can say I made a lot of mistakes, definitely, in terms, especially at the beginning, there was a little bit of disconnect, as I said. But you need to also, there's a part of the excuse is that at the very beginning, we had a sort of road show presenting this big integration plan, really a road show in a different location. So for 1 month, we were constantly, let's say, on the stage. So we were visiting these companies, put literally on the stage to explain. We were celebrated. We were a kind of superstars to some extent. So at that point, you say, okay, wow, we're going to change the world. And that is where the disconnect started a little bit, because actually most of the success comes to communication, understanding each other. It took a while. Definitely it took a while.
Yeah. Because I think, even if they understand the overall business why, they need to understand their personal why for that each employee. What does it mean for me, for my future, my career? And if they can't connect on that level, then you're not going to succeed as well. So very, 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 very important. So how long was you there? 2 years, you say?
That was a couple of years. So in 2 years, we managed to complete this integration. Then our mission was pretty much completed. The second step was to suppose was the merge of this new company, Chinese company, with the industrial tire division of Pirelli. That didn't take place, actually, for other reasons. So, but that was not honestly my mission. So we completed our mission in China, and then beginning of 2018, I was called back by Pirelli, and I was given this great job in North America.
Wow. I just want to clarify, was it all rebranded along the way, or did each company keep their own brand identity?
So from a legal perspective, one company, but then they had also commercial brands that they maintain. Those were the brands used to sell the products in the market. Yeah.
But they didn't rebrand under one umbrella, or did they?
No, basically the new company took the name of the biggest of the four, the one that I was employed with. Yes,
but then they
correct.
their individual brand, because obviously that's where they're known in the marketplace.
Correct, exactly.
Okay. Yeah,
exactly.
Fantastic. So looking back on your experience of China, both the year before, and the years after, what were your biggest takeaways from that? Biggest learning moments?
Really and this goes back really to my very first days in China, really to question myself every time. You don't have to take anything for granted. So you, to some extent, you have to erase your knowledge and to put your knowledge there. Then you can pick from your knowledge every time you need. But wait a second, I have a problem. I try to look at the problem really from different perspective, also opposite perspective. Then you check with other people that have experience of China in that particular case, but we can clearly translate this to other countries or to other situations. So it's not just an experience that is China itself. So question yourself, erase everything, and then put in place, decide on the basis of all the information you've gathered. It takes a lot of patience, resilience, and adaptability. You need to adjust yourself to this new environment. And again, it's a learning that is not valid only for China. Every time we face a new environment, I'm in US now. I was in UK some years ago, and I'm never said I'm done like this, and this is Rudy, and you have to adjust yourself to myself.
Yeah,
it's only.
I see a lot of your peers go wrong though. I see it happen all the time. Obviously, we don't talk about on the podcast too much, but I spoke to so many HR leaders that go into these new cultures, new situations, and trying to adopt the same principles and strategies and frameworks and ideas and based on experience, but it doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't always work. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't.
You're right.
As well. So I love that.
And the second big thing I will say, it's what is going on in China, what is been going on for years, that the energy of the people, the optimism. Now, forget a second COVID-19, but China is already out to some extent from that problem. But the fact that future is always seen as an opportunity, not as a threat or something dark. I don't know what's going to happen. It's always seen as something positive. And this is great, because then you have the possibility to work with people with this positive approach, attitude, which was for me a complete surprise. I had worked in Italy and UK before moving to China, where not necessarily motivation and I remember, it depends also in which area of Italy and UK, but I work in UK in a very unionized environment in the north of UK. So motivation, engagement was not really high in our particular environment. Clearly, I moved to a situation where enthusiasm, motivation, if you don't give, in particular Chinese, possibility to progress and to learn, they will leave the company because they have so many options there in the market. So
I was going to ask you about that as well, because I read a piece of research a few days ago that was talking about like every year that during the Chinese New Year, there seems to be a mass job hopping trend. I think the numbers, I think I've got in front of me now, it's something like 70% of white collar workers are looking for a new job every year. after the Chinese New Year, and 50% of them are leaving for salary increased, and then followed by 40% for due to job uncertainty, which was pretty surprising numbers.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Because they know they have more. They know there's more opportunities out there.
Yeah.
Probably why there's so much innovation coming out of China, then, based on what you're saying.
Yeah.
As well, why they're disrupting so many markets out there as well. What about you personally? Putting the HR hat to one side, what's your advice for other HR leaders out there that are perhaps thinking about taking on one of these roles in China or in another country around the world? How has it been for you moving out there with your wife, settling in locally? Because no one really talks about that as much, and I just wanted to get your take. What did it meet your expectations going out? Did it, is it completely different to what you thought it would be? What was that like?
I studied political sciences. And why that? Because I wanted to work as a diplomat. That never happened. What I'm saying is that
you're close to it, though.
Yeah, kind of. So I always liked the possibility to be exposed to different environments, different cultures. Now, going back to your question, as an HR, I think it's crucial to have this exposure. You may still, at the beginning of my career, I had the chance to work in Italy, but the scope of my job was Europe. So I have the chance to travel, to see, and that was great. Then if you have also the chance really to move and to work in another country, that really broaden your perspective. Whether it's China, it's UK, Germany, doesn't make a big difference. There may be locations that are nicer than others, for sure. But in terms of challenging yourself, that's the takeaway. You challenge yourself, you become stronger as a person, you become a better person to some extent, or you have a deepened experience. You can also face problems in your life from a different perspective. So they help you not just as HR. That's my big takeaway. I've been away since 2011. Yeah, so it's 9 years. I'm not exactly looking forward to go back to my country anytime soon because I like this kind of living.
But you're right. So it's building resilience both personally and professionally, right?
Yeah.
Because I found that as well with my upbringing was pretty tough, and I realized resilience that I had to face, or have growing up actually really helped me in my career because it prepared me for those tough times. And I realized they're one in the same. They really help. And putting yourself in a position like you do, and many other successful HR leaders, where you constantly challenge yourself, is where the magic happens and where it's exciting. It's scary, stressful sometimes as well, of course. But on the other end of it, it's so fulfilling, and the work you've been able to do as well. So yeah, really, really exciting times as well. Would you do it again if a role like that?
Definitely, yes. Yeah, no question. Yes. I didn't say that. I was comfortable in Pirelli in Shanghai. This move forced me to move also to Beijing. So it was a different location, which is still okay for a foreigner. But life is not as easy as in Shanghai, where it's the most international city in China. Beijing, still very nice city, say less international than Shanghai. That was another great experience that added to my personal experience. To answer your question, another advice, I would say to NHR, if you have the chance, look at what's going on in the Eastern world, whether it's China, whether it's Southeast Asia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia. I had the chance to cover also those areas. It's what I said about China in terms of enthusiasm, motivation. It's there. So it's great to work there, to have the chance to experience what's going on. It can be for 2 years, for 3, for 5. Some people decide to settle there and spend the rest of their life. Hong Kong, there's a lot of foreigners there. It's a great experience, and that's my personal advice for any HR that has the chance to take that.
Well, look, thanks so much for taking the time out to join me today. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad we made this happen.
Thank you, Chris.
And obviously, you're in this new journey now. How long have you been the North American role? How long has it been now?
2 years now, beginning
2
of
years.
2018. Yes.
That time. And I know you obviously at the moment the biggest facility is in Mexico, right?
Correct. Yes.
So, and you just managed to get, you said before the show, I hope you don't mind me saying, you just managed to get quite a few of those guys back to work.
Yeah. We had to shut down for 3 weeks there, but now we are back on track. Fortunately, under the current circumstances, is great news.
Well, congratulations to you and the team, and stay safe, obviously, and I look forward to seeing you again on the other side of this. And apart from that, enjoy the rest of your day, Rudy, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Okay.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. See you later.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.